first.
Well, hello, we're back again. This is Sunrise on a beautiful Saturday morning. I thought it was going to rain today.
Sunrise.
Yes, you're correct, but raining doesn't mean the sun will not come. The sun always comes up at the end of the day, and you know.
Mark would say daily dose of sunshine. This is a weekly dose of sunshine.
But come to think of it, the rain has been quite a lot, these days, with the NIMET always, warning of states that are prone to flooding, to be extra careful. A state like Lagos now that is really, really, close to nature.
Close to nature, indeed. And it's really troubling if we look at it in the real sense of it. Ogun State, for instance, recently warned its people, y'all move up. Upland, so to speak.
I usually wonder, where are they moving up to? Are they just going to leave their homes and leave, and then all of them will just crowd in one place and live where?
That's what some people say. That's the question on people's minds when they say all of that is lip service. Because you give them permission to build their houses there anyway. After investing money to build a house, pay you land use charge, and got all my permits, paid for the permits. Now you're asking me to move away from my house that you, government, authorized me to build and live in. We need to rethink that.
And then, even us as, a people, we need to rethink a lot of things too. Because as much as, flooding happens and we say it's a thing of nature, man often is like, let me say, 30 to 40% cause, blocked drainage systems, poor refuse.
Well, while that is...
Then poorly constructed drainage systems as well.
While that is a factor, it was a diplomat who told me one day, while we were discussing this issue, I think about 2 years ago or so, said, look, sometimes it's not a problem of drainage or whatever, it is the volume of water. Yeah. And he gave me an analogy. You pour your bathtub, in the days of bathtubs, they can only drain a certain amount of water at a time.
Yeah, because of the little
space.
Yes.
And so he said that's like an analogy of a drainage system. Now, if the water is a lot more, it will take longer time
to drain off
for the drainage system to take it.
And then the incoming water is faster. The pressure is more than what's going out.
I know. So that is one factor. Now, Jeffrey, our colleague, when I was talking about this, he said, hey, so people go to Venice. Venice is practically
underwater.
Underwater. But we go there anyway. So why can't we think about what they thought about, do what they did, and they live, is it in or on water, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days in a year? So, well, now that's a good thought. Maybe the Ogun State government or the Lagos State government can think about that. Because look at Epidemic, for instance, the coastal line on Epidemic, and a number of other places all across the Niger Delta of Nigeria. They are practically living on water.
On water, yes.
So can we think about something like that? Now, we have reclaimed land in Lagos. It is possible. That's just the
I think there's even a stop order on land reclamation in Lagos.
Yes, there is the temporary, from the Ministry of Environment. But the point is, can we, if we want to build on water, can we build on water?
On water, yes.
Can we dig the foundation beyond whatever? If we build those things on the offshore stuff, why can't we do the same here? Oh, you're telling me it's going to be a lot costly. Yes. What's the value of life?
Yeah.
So that's just what I'm talking about.
We can take an example from the Makoko, is it Makoko? The people, the community on water. I mean, they found a way to build. Oh, but their houses are practically on stilts.
See,
wooden houses at that.
And that is
it's the locals that did it. The people's effort.
People's effort. So now imagine you bring in some professionals there to practically build that place so that there is water, but you can build your houses on it. And it's the minimum I think that any government should be able to do, because now that they have more money. Well, are we saying that that's what they're not going to be using all of the money to?
the fact now that they have more
more
funds. But there's a heat on states now because practically if there's more revenue is being freed up from, you know, the things that the government says it's now doing, and states and local governments now are free to get their own money. So states too are free to. I mean, the volume of funding goes up. People are saying that we're yet to see development plans from states to, you know, balance out what they're now getting from FAC, or are we not going to know? Maybe people now want states to publish what they have. The budget should increase now.
the video song comes to mind. Then go feel it.
Yes. So
are we feeling it?
But people just sometimes we just talk.
We are not feeling
do we take
it.
Action.
We are not feeling it. And I'm not talking about building bridges and all those things. I'm talking about people's living standards.
Yeah.
The federal government says no more subsidy. Now, that subsidy money they collect and give to the state, among other things, because according to the data available to us, a whole chunk of the revenue increase is coming from the non-oil sector. Now, there is a likelihood that if more people are drawn into the tax net by January 2026, in the first quarter, that same money should increase. And that is saying that we need to begin to, you say they're facing heat. They have not started facing heat. We need to put their feet to the fire. We need to get them to answer questions to the people. You're getting a lot more money now. What are you doing with our money? And there is this thing in the minds of some people, even in civil service. I hear some of them say when someone is trying to do the right thing, and they will be telling that official of government, will be telling another official of government who's trying to do the right thing, is it your daddy's money? Is it your daddy? Can you imagine that? Is it your... Come and deny it if you don't see it. Is it your father that brought me here? Yeah, you know, so those things, we need to ask the right questions. And it also raises the question of whether or not we interrogate enough or significantly enough the people, the quality of people that we recruit to govern us, to lead us, to direct us. Because if someone, forgive me, it's what the Constitution says, you only need to attempt WAEC to be president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So if a WAEC attempted or attemptee chairman of the local government or governor is asking, let me see the name of one of our guests, Professor Adibe, that, Oga, sit down there. He will sit down, even with all of his professorial, whatever, who else now, even Professor Shimaje, the former vice president. He is somebody who doesn't know half as much as he does, will be calling him and telling him, oh, sit down there, simply because the best fellow does not know or does not understand. So the same rigor that goes into recruiting people into the civil service should be even more on the people that we recruit to govern us in a democracy. Right. That is the only time we can begin to ask for accountability. Talking about democracy, Rivers State. Finally, we saw Governor Fubara alight from the aircrafts. You know, and there was a lot of anticipation the day before on a Thursday when we thought he was coming back, and you know, people stayed all day, but finally it's here. He said he just wants to concentrate on, you know, making the people's lives better. At the House of Assembly, the leadership has said that he should present a list of commissioner nominees and budget for the rest of the year, which brings to mind what we just talked about, you know. So I wonder what budget he's going to come up with now that, you know, more money is coming to states. And, you know, River State is, you know, one of our money spinners in terms of oil revenue as well. So let's see what he comes up with. Aside from the money to the states, there is the 13% derivation to oil-producing states. I'm not sure if that one is about equitability. So the more oil you give, the more you get. I don't know if that is the situation. But interestingly, that's one of the first few things we're going to be talking about. Because in that speech of the governor, he mentioned the president at least 3 times. And then there's something that he said. He was under pressure to contest the constitutionality of the suspension, of the emergency rule and the suspension. Not ruffle feathers as it is. Let's go into the menu this morning. So our first conversation is End of emergency rule in Rivers. What next?
Yes, so, well, we said what's next. What next? At least the rest of the year, right? We also have a skills gap. Why graduates seem to struggle.
They struggle, actually. That's not true. And then we will also be talking about the Ebola scare, Nigeria's response. That may come, that may be a shuffle there, but we'll see.
And then we'll talk about the World Cleanup Day, which incidentally is today.
And then if you've seen that video making the rounds of some students in a school somewhere in Lagos, I'm not mentioning anything yet.
Bullying one another.
So, is it about peer pressure, this drug epidemic thing we're talking about, or what is it about? We'll find out when we discuss on lifestyle today. So in the meantime, do yourself a favor. Grab your cup of cocoa.
I'm joining him with this cocoa, but I might soon move to cocoa soon.
And if you prefer cocoa, go ahead. First hat to go and get cocoa. I'll be right back with you. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Well, I think that song is apt for River State.
Yes, it certainly is.
Because even on, and it was on the very 18th, the very day that the president pronounced that, you know, the emergency rule should be over. That was a Thanksgiving service.
Yeah.
And so, yes, thank God it did. But, you know, that's just one side of it. Because the recent emergency rule by the president, citing a provision of the Constitution, sparked intense debate about the limits of presidential power and the future of democratic governance in Nigeria. Now, the 6-month rule has ended.
Yes.
And, of course, it was marked with controversy, many questioning its constitutionality and potential abuse.
And the president standing his ground.
And the president standing his ground.
Like, River State is a very important state, so we can't allow things to go awry or to degenerate further than they were already. So you needed to stabilize things out.
The question that I'm asking this morning is, what next? How do we gain back all the constitutional virtues that we may have lost?
Yeah.
Emergency rule means some things were suspended.
Yeah.
And if we look at the speech of the governor in particular, and the pronouncements, the responses of the minister of the federal capital, it seems that everything is back now.
Yeah.
But if we look at the governor's speech, there are some questions that I'm asking. You know, what does this mean? What does that mean? So what next?
He did say, what next? Well, he did say that he's ready, you know, to work with the House of Assembly to ensure that, you know, things get back to order, because they've lost a lot in 6 months. But so he said he's ready to do all that. He wants to work together to ensure, and they too, they say they sat on that first day. It's just the governor that didn't come back. They had a plenary, you know, looked at a lot of things. So I think that nobody, all the players, they don't want that to happen again. Even the people that were asking questions, I think everybody will now say, you know what, people work together to guard against having that again, since they know it can happen.
That is the expectation. But really, is that what is going to happen? Two gentlemen join us for now to have a conversation on this. Professor, three of them actually. Professor Jideofor Ajibe is a professor of international relations and political science, Nasarawa State University. He joins us. He's also founder of Adonis and Abbey Publishers. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Good morning, Prof, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, Ayo.
Yeah, we also have Mr. Curtis. Yes, we also have Mr. Curtis Adigba joining us this morning. He is a political scientist. He's a political commentator, a political consultant. He joins us all the way from New Jersey in the United States of America. Thank you for joining us this morning. All right, we also have joining us from River State, Oscar Emabe, who is the Executive Director of the South-South Youth Initiative. He also joins us virtually. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning. Let me begin.
Good morning.
Yeah, let me say, maybe I should begin with you. Has the air in River State changed? Do the people smell new, fresh air, or is just business as usual?
Yeah, good morning once again, and good to be with you this morning. It's unfortunate that we are now talking about another set of situation that we shouldn't be talking about right now, because I said this with days. One, the state is backwards, almost 70 years backward. We don't have anything that we can be able to show as an achievement or what has been achieved from the 6 months state of emergency. At this point, Rivers people, a lot of Rivers people are not happy, even though some claim to be celebrating. But I think we are not happy about it because we don't see any reason. The emergency rule in Rivers was not necessary at all.
Well, Mr. Emeabi, just so we can make progress, we are here now, 6 months after. Do you think anything, we're trying to look at what next? Are complaining, we have complained for the past 6 months. According to the president, 40 cases in courts, right, on this particular matter. Those days are now gone. Emergency rule is over. What next? What do you think needs to be done next so we can make progress? And as you said, redeem the time, if possible.
Thank you very much. Now, what we intend to see at this point is a big difference from the initial situation that we face today. What we experience, or what we want to experience any moment from now, is a total collaboration and a total working relationship with the State House of Assembly and His Excellency, the Deputy, and other meaningful citizens of the state. What we want to see is an effective working relationship that can be able to foster governance in the state, that can also be able to meet up to the gaps and the challenges that we have faced in the period of 6 months. So we need an effective working situation in the state. We also need a total concentration on economic revival. You can also believe with me that so much have been lost out from the Rivers State Treasury account, and the Rivers State resources have been abused within a period of 6 months. So since that has been done, we want His Excellency to concentrate more on economic revival, and also to concentrate on how to build an effective relationship with the State House of Assembly. Going forward, we also want the governor to think of how he can be able to complete the abandoned project that they actually started and was abandoned because of the state of emergency in the period of 6 months. We want a total completion of the project that was actually kick-started by the governor before it was suspended. Now, if this is done, then we also want to believe that there will be sustenance of peace. We also want to call on the FCT minister, but it's a yes, Mr. Wike, the former governor of Rivers State, to please, we are appealing to the FCT minister, we are appealing to the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Tinubu, to please allow His Excellency to perform his constitutional responsibility. It is his constitutional responsibility and should not be disrupted. We also want his governor to actually
this is appreciated. The first thing that I was hoping you would speak to, my apologies, first thing I was expecting you would speak to is how the people feel about this new air in River State. But, you know, I'll come back to you on that. Prof, the question to you as well, looking at it from political or whatever side you want to look at it. Now, the reason that this question is coming to you now in this way is because there are those who said the issues in River State that warranted the state of emergency was a lot more political than governance. And politics was already beginning to affect governance. Now that 6 months after, things seem to be changing with the pronouncement of the governor and all of that. My question again really is, what next? What do you expect we will see? What are the underlying things we may not be looking at now, which are likely to play out, despite the president's pronouncement, despite the governor's pronouncement? Some things that we may not see or we may not hear, but are likely to affect what next? Professor Adibe.
Well, thank you very much, Ayo. First of all, I would like to look at the possible impact of this on the natural, quote-unquote, natural trajectory or dynamics of reverse politics. There are things that seem to be embedded in reverse politics. One is that the godson always runs out of town, the godfather. It started with Dr. Odele running out of town. His mentor, or Harry Marshall, and Odele himself, and Mechi running out of town. Governor Odele, who brought him in, and he was his own godson. And then he came down to the turn of Wike, and Rotimi Amechi. As you know, Wike was Amechi's chief of staff. And when he became governor, he also ran Amechi out of town. Now, shortly after Fubara became governor, he also tried to run Wike out of town. So far, he has not succeeded. So one of the things we'll be looking at from the political perspective is to see whether the trajectory of Rivers politics is likely to change. But in his early days, this peace has not been tested. And what we are likely to see is the testing of the, whatever peace agreement they had. One of the signs we saw at the airport, people, who were wearing uniforms, singing praises of Fubara, which sort of tells you it was not organic, and there was a lot of hidden triumphalism in that celebration. And then on the other hand, Nyesom Wike doesn't want to leave anyone in doubt that he's the master in Rivers. So we'll see what happens when the peace is, what some people have called the peace of the graveyard, when it is really tested. The other thing that is of interest to me is what we call machine politics. Machine politics is that process where the godfather, everything is tightly controlled, and you have the boss, one boss, that everyone has to respect. We are likely to see whether this incident, the declaration of the state of emergency, the apparent emasculation of Fubara in the dogfight, whether it has led to bringing back of the old form, the crude form of godfatherism that we started with in 1999, which, as I said, is called machine politics because it's tightly controlled with a boss. Now, if that happens, and we saw a lot of it in Lagos, if that becomes a new pattern, then we are likely to see probably governors being afraid, and then that this veto power might be wielded against them to whip them into line. We still don't know. The other thing that is to be noted in this in general is so far, in any fight between the godson and the godfather, in nearly all the cases, the incumbent governors always prevailed. If you look at go to Kwankwaso and Ganduje in Kanu, in Imo State from Jim Wobodo and the governor he installed, and to Sullivan and the Chimaroke, the governors always have the advantage, but not in this case. We don't know if it is because he had federal might. The other point I want to make is that this conversation, the support for politicians, loyalty to politicians is only for a season. So this conversation about state of emergency and its impact will even become more vociferous either at the time Tinubu has left office, or if for any reason he has become so weakened that other forces are emboldened to challenge him.
Let me ask from this point now, Mr. Adigba, what lessons, do you think may have been learned from the 6 months emergency rule? The first speaker spoke about being taken some years backward and all of that. It was just 6 months. The governor has promised that he will work with the State House of Assembly and, all other parties to ensure that the state moves forward from here. But what lessons do you think have been learned in the last 6 months to ensure that, everything remains calm, going forward, and they work towards actual development of the state? Please unmute your mic.
Okay.
Right. Can Mr. Professor Adibe, if you can, I don't know if you heard the question. While we wait for him to respond. Yes, we can hear you now.
All right. First and foremost, I don't think any lesson was learned, and any was intended to be learned, beyond the fact that when you are a political godson, you don't act like the political godfather. And it's made worse by you having a president who believes completely in the theory of godson and godfather. And then, of course, we saw that the purpose was not for anyone to learn anything beyond the fact that you will have to obey your political godfather. And so what they wanted to achieve basically has been achieved. You whip an errand boy who is trying to defy the order of things in the state back to the line. That has happened. But as to what happens next, I think that we must learn from history. And people say history repeats itself. I don't think it's history that repeats itself. It is the rhymes of history that repeats itself because we don't learn from history. What is going to happen in Rivers State is that we have just laid foundation for another set of industrial scale conflicts. Because the peace that we thought we have achieved in the state has not been achieved. The only thing that will happen is that if the governor continues to act as the good boy, walk on an eggshell, totally abdicate the power of his office, and then allow his political godfather to dictate everything to him. Number two, you are going to see from this moment that the governor will have to decamp from the PDP to the APC for there to be peace in the state. Now he's surrounded by APC loyalists at the local government level, which was one of the intended goals. Look, conduct a local government election. By the time he comes back, you leave him hanging in the air. Now, we have seen again clearly from the political godfather, the FCT minister, that he's not going to let off. He's going to dictate to the governor on whatever he wants. And when people are talking about solution, I have been asking just one simple question. What was the cause of all the crises in the River State, in the state that led to the imposition of the state of emergency? Other than what Fubara told us about his pen, how someone else was interested in that pen, have we dealt with the origin of that crisis? And what was it? It was simply over control of the resources of River State people. So, if the governor has decided to surrender that control, what if he decides at some point that the control is too much for him and he cannot move forward? We're going to have another crisis. Now, I take you to Plateau State. After the state of emergency was declared and the governor was brought back, what happened? He didn't keep to the terms of the agreement, and then we had him impeached by a minority of the State House of Assembly. So it's not here to horror, because the governor will soon discover that he's just simply sitting on top. And if he decides for whatever reason to begin to look at the things that were done while he was on suspension, there will be crisis. Now, the other thing is that ultimately it's going to be the River State people that are going to lose here. Fubara can decide to play the good boy now, gain whatever he wants to gain from government, and at the end of his tenure, he leaves. But has that solved the problem? And so I don't believe that the state of emergency did much, because it was also possible to have found a political solution which allows the governor to do his job, and then allows also, probably gave the godfather a bit of what he wanted. Now, look at how the state of emergency even ended. The state of emergency was declared by the president, but who informed Nigerians that it was coming to an end? It was the FCT minister, the godfather of the governor. And he's been talking tough. He's been talking about forgiving the governor. So as far as I'm concerned, this is just merely whitewashing of the political situation in River State.
What's interesting?
And I don't think that River people themselves are happy with what has happened.
Well,
But unfortunately,
one thing that's a little befuddling in the entire scenario for me is that not once, if memory serves me right, in his speeches, in his interventions, in his utterances as president, did the president, for one, in any way, manner, shape, or form, reference or mention the FCT minister. In a way, that's told me, and I keep saying to myself, maybe the president is saying in his own professional judgment as the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, not as a politician, as a president, that according to the law, the FCT minister is not a player, is a non-entity. That's according to the law. And he was probably also saying that if there is politics at play, it should not affect anything governance related at all. So if, because I hear you also saying, yes, if that is the scenario, what then are the options obvious to anyone in this matter?
Ayo, in this conflict, we have two major actors. One of them is an elected governor, elected by the people like the president. The second party is an appointed minister by the president. The president waded the big state, relying on Section 305 to suspend the governor. Why didn't the president drop the FCT minister if he wanted genuine peace and not just a political control? What the president basically did was to put his hand on the scale for his favorite son and minister in the conflict.
No, I don't think you have spoken to the angle that I'm speaking now. No, just a second, just a second. So that we can put it in proper perspective. As I said, and I think you agree, in this whole scenario, legally speaking, the FCT minister does not appear. Not in the laws, not in the constitution. No, this is not pretending. Just a second. This is not, just 1 second. Let me put the question right, and maybe Professor Adibe may also want to weigh in. Legally, check the constitution, check any law, check the electoral law, whatever. You will see the president. You will see the governor. You will see the House of Assembly, but you will not see the FCT minister in this particular matter.
This is part of the problem in our political conversation. The attempt to play the ostrich. Was Fubara fighting himself alone in River State? Who was the second party in the conflict? Don't you have audios and visuals about the FCT minister always going and calling pressers to talk about the conflict in the state? The role he was playing in River State, was it a constitutional role as a former governor? Now, the president can decide to mention him or not mention him, but that does not take away the reality that it was the other party in the conflict that led to the imposition of a state of emergency.
Just 1 second, Mr. Adiba, just 1 second. Prof, I'll come to you, Mr. Emeabe, in a little while, but Prof, please speak to that angle. I mean, you have spoken about, you know, things that are likely to play out and all of that. But in this whole scenario, not once did the president utter a word in public about the FCT minister. Not that he is not a relevant person, but I'm looking at the eye of the law in all of this scenario. And I'm wondering, how come? I am wondering, and I don't know who else is wondering, how come the president never mentioned the FCT minister? And I'm looking at our laws, I'm looking at the constitution, I'm looking at the electoral laws, I'm looking at whatever, and I'm wondering, hey, is it because the FCT minister is a non-entity, so to speak, in the eye of the law in the issues that we're having in River State?
Yeah, that's one way you possibly can look at it. You know, we can think differently. Other people will also recall that when the president, you know, all the analysis, their own public analysis of why the state of emergency was declared, only one side, only one party to the conflict was constantly being blamed. So that was also, you know, if you want really to, you know, get into the realm of that speculation, you can speculate on one side, the way you were trying to reason, that probably he thought that the FCT angle doesn't matter. But he could have, then if it didn't matter, he could have, as one of the speakers said, suspended him. All the blames were on the governor. So I think really, as I said, we don't really know the kind of relationship that exists between Mr. President and the FCT minister. As I said earlier, the loyalty of politicians is only for a season. We will only know the true nature of their relationship if President Tinubu declares an interest in recontesting and if he wins. It is only true during that second tenure that he will be able to unfold his real thoughts on the minister. As we saw it with Obasanjo and Buhari. Oshibanjo and Buhari. During the first term, Oshibanjo was made to be larger than life, very effective. And then, after Buhari won a second term, they decided to clip his wing and kept him in the cooler. So if that happens to Nyesom Wissem, if Tinubu secures a second term, and that's when we will know whether he will keep the FCT minister, because from political science, we know the FCT minister is violating certain key laws of power. One of them is that you don't compete for visibility, for popularity, for media attention with your boss. And the FCT minister calls media palace far more than the president does. You go to the city, his photographs, his billboard, he's everywhere on the billboard. This really, in ordinary sense, that's enough for, under the laws of power, for somebody to lose his standing. But maybe he's being tolerated because you never know the role he played in the 2023 elections and what is expected. We don't know the nature of what binds them together. And as I said, their loyalty is only for a season. It's when we enter the next season that, and the current relationship, the current peace agreement is tested. And then there is what we call the fog of war, the unknown variables, and might come up, either strengthen the hands of the president or weakens the hands of the president and strengthens the opposition. During that time, you might see some surprises. So we're just waiting. It's still early days.
Right. And Mr. Imiabe, this one is for you. What do you think about, what has been playing out, all these things that we've been talking about? Prof just talked about the peace agreement that, was signed, in which all parties to the crisis were present, and they did sign that peace agreement. I recall, as at that time, when the president first tried to call them to order, even the governor was saying he will do what will happen, and all that. We talk about godson and godfatherism and all of that, but the FCT minister is an appointed official. The governor is elected. So I think he had a bigger role to play in keeping the peace in the state than the FCT minister, regardless of what the FCT minister says. He could have just kept his calm and just continued with the business of governance. Did you hear my question? Is he there?
Mr. Imiabe, can you hear us?
Okay. Okay. Like I said before, one of those things was the governor of Rivers State. That is something that actually he preached against. And if I recall, that he preached against was that godfatherism. He was not in support of godfatherism. And I could when
Apologies. Your network we seem to have a problem with we can't hear you properly. So we'll try and fix that and get back to you.
Absolutely. But, this conversation is getting more interesting. Well, Mr. Adigba, now the peace has been pronounced on all fronts. The president said intelligence available to him says peace has largely returned to Rivers State. In his own response to some of the questions of my colleague, Shimon Kimbaloyi, the minister of the FCT former governor of the state, also says peace is largely returning and he's not going to be imposing anything on the governor of the state. And you also heard the governor making that pronouncement and saying no price is too steep to pay for peace. In fact, he said something about a popular saying that the costliest peace is better than the cheapest war. What do you see playing out going forward?
I think we heard rhetoric like this from the governor in the past, and we also heard things like that from the FCT minister. Now, to come back to your point, you don't impose peace. You bring about peace on wings of justice and fairness. And whenever you get two people together, I mean two persons together that have their supporters, and you just try to take their temperature, the political temperature, and then you just try to get them to make peace among themselves, it usually does not endure, because you are going to go back and these people will begin to listen to their supporters. And then the other problem you are going to have is that you have a situation of absolute surrender by a party now who feels that because he needs to get back to the office, but you know power has its own tractions. So he's back to power, and then every day he gets a new set of instructions about how he should govern the state. He's going to fight back. And that's why I have been saying that, look, okay, first of all, why did the first attempt at making peace fail? Why did it fail? It failed because it was seen by most stakeholders in the state as an unfair and unjust imposition of conditions for peace. Now, when they say to us, oh, we've signed the peace agreement, do we understand or know the terms of this agreement? On one hand, you have the FCT minister saying, oh, the governor is free to do whatever he wants. But then you got a hint when he said there was nothing that said he should have returned the day he was returned to power. Okay? It tells you I'm not going to nominate any commissioner or anybody for him. But you and I know, of course. So not until we get to know the terms of peace and who is to do what, all we have right now is the peace of the cemetery. And trust me, in the coming days, we are going to see. Look, first of all, and I want you to take note of this and write it down. The governor is going to defect any moment from now to the APC. If he doesn't do that, that will be another reason for conflict. The governor is just been busting. He doesn't have any power left. The only reason why he's been let in is because they couldn't extend the emergency rule. And now he's back. He doesn't have any power. The State House of Assembly is just going to do basically what they want. The local government chairman are just going to act like they're his boss. But look, if that gives River State the peace, the people of River State the peace just to go about their private businesses, it's fine. And like Prof said, this is only for a season. Okay? But we have to go back to constitutionalism. And I keep saying this, and people don't understand until it happens to them. The FCT minister was once the governor of the state. For 8 years, nobody dictated anything. In fact, nobody could tell him he was like king over the state. And he was the governor. We saw that happen. But he wants to do it to someone after he had promised on national television so many times he doesn't believe in godfatherism. And once he leaves, he's going to leave. And now, because his politics is right, he's getting the help from the federal government because of political calculation.
Right.
But what we are doing to ourselves as a country is that we are destroying constitutional democracy. There is no arrangement outside of the constitution that should make someone who is not the governor to become more powerful than the governor in the state. So as far as I'm concerned, there is no peace in River State. We're just deceiving ourselves. And watch out, very soon there will be another explosion of conflict.
Well, let's taper our language on that, because we actually want peace to reign in Rivers State. But the next couple
but
of...
you can't have peace unless you have done justice.
Right. The next couple of months, will unfold, and we'll see how it goes. But to you, Professor, how does, this emergency rule in Rivers State, what does it say about the power dynamics between the executive, legislature, and the judiciary in Nigeria? What implications does this actually have for separation of powers?
Thank you very much. Let me answer that question in a different way. Some people have criticized Fubara for not going to court to test his suspension. If we look at what has happened in the National Assembly, Natasha's scenario, in hindsight, it was a very smart move. Because if he had gone to court, by now, you see the PDP governors, they went to court. Several months down the line, the Supreme Court has not pronounced. And if he had gone to court, probably they would not have reinstated him. They would have argued that they should wait for the court to deliver judgment on his case. So now, the issue now is there is what you can call, in the former Soviet Union, early days of the former Soviet Union, they talked about capitalist encirclement, that they were surrounded by hostile states, hostile countries that were capitalists, and they had to find a way to solve that problem. That is exactly what Fubara is going to face. He is faced with weaker encirclement. Local governments overwhelmingly in his favor, state legislature overwhelmingly in his favor, National Assembly overwhelmingly against him if he tries to make the wrong move. The presidency itself has made it clear that he was the wrong party and that he failed. In fact, that even the issues of violence that happened, that provided the justification, not justification, the rationalization for the state of emergency, was blamed for it. So he has to now suffer from what we call the weaker encirclement. How does he navigate this? Legislature is not on your side. Judiciary, people say you should have gone to court, and people know. If you had gone to court, you trust with all due respect, when people tell you go to court, what are they trying to tell you in simple terms? So his skills are going to be tested. But even decamping to APC, may not necessarily solve it. There are several reasons why people can decamp now, including the fact that virtually all the other opposition parties are factionalized, and people having little confidence in the judiciary, in somebody who, even if you win on that party, somebody can go to court and say, oh, you won it on the faction that sponsored you shouldn't have sponsored you. So that's one of the reasons many of them are running for political safety. So what is going to happen is, how is this peace going to be tested? How does he navigate the weaker encirclement? And as one of the speakers, you can control your own emotions, what of your own supporters, and what of the fact that power has its own dynamics, and that you can be emboldened to do certain things.
It's very interesting.
Then, what are the intervening variables, the fog of war, the known variables that might be a game changer? If tomorrow, Nyesom Wike and the president falls out, or maybe the president decides that he needs Fubara more than Wike, the dynamics changes. So
well, I guess we'll have to wait for those days. The thing that one thing that you've said today, Prof, that I am going to register in my heart for a long time is this peace has to be tested. It goes to how it will be tested. Because it seems to me like a large number of people in Rivers State, the elders, the civil society organizations, are largely speaking, in ways that seem to support the governor. But how all of that is going to play out, particularly in the light of the members of the House of Assembly being overwhelmingly on one side, almost like they're against the governor, I guess we'll wait to see. And if the things you gentlemen have said here do not go exactly as as you have said it, I guess it would be one of the 9 wonders of the world if we have to add a number of 2 to it. But if we can have a last word, Mr. Emeabi, I don't know if you are still there with us. How do you think the people can be mobilized to align with the peace that the governor is calling for? Okay, I guess he's not here. Well, okay, can you hear me, Mr. Emeabi? I think you are muted. Could you kindly unmute?
Okay, I think, like I said, it's going to be a bit difficult for
Oh dear. Sincere apologies, Mr. Emeabi. The sound is not cooperative today, and I'm hoping that one of these days we'll be able to have you made ready, because you actually did this within a very short time. We appreciate the fact that you were able to join us. Oscar Emeabi is Executive Director of the South-South Youth Initiative. We appreciate your time this morning. Mr. Curtis Adigba joins us all the way from New Jersey. We know it's very, very early hours in New Jersey right now, and then you have woken up to join us. Thank you so much for your time. He's a political consultant, as well as Professor Jidofo Adibe, who is a professor of international relations and political science, Nasarawa State University, Kefi. He's also founder of Adonis and Abe Publishers. We appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so when we return, you know, we've faced a scare for 6 months in River State. Well, there is a kind of scare that we have faced before.
Yes, almost semi-permanently.
That it seems to be, is it coming back or not? Join us, but in the meantime, please don't forget your cup of cocoa.
Welcome back, everyone. Now we have come to a subject that, you know, concerns everybody, all Nigerians. The Ebola scare and Nigeria's response. Only just yesterday, the federal government gave a reassurance to all that there's been no recorded case of Ebola or the Marburg disease in Abuja, as was initially thought. So that was, you know, a big relief. But the recent Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo has raised concerns, not just in Africa, but globally, with the World Health Organization declaring it a public health emergency. The outbreak caused by the Zaire Ebola virus has already claimed 15 lives, and the case fatality rate is estimated at 57%. Nigeria is still recovering from the 2014 outbreak that claimed several lives, including Dr. Ameyo Adadevo is on high alert. Of course, we have our guest to talk about that in the studio today is the Director General of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, Dr. Jide Idris, who is a friend of the house, who was one time Commissioner for Health here in Lagos State, and you know,
until you drove me out.
You're welcome, Doctor.
My pleasure.
To the program today. You know, talk us through the specific measures that the country is adopting to ensure that we do not, you know, record any cases of Ebola or any other hemorrhagic, you know, disease coming in from, you know, countries that border Nigeria and what have you. We talked about the 2014 Ebola. That was not just a scare. We actually had it, and then there was the coronavirus that you know, got everybody at the edge of their seat and all that. And we know that those days the country's borders were strengthened, the airports were screening passengers and all that. So I'm sure we've learned lessons, huge lessons from that. What are the measures now that we're taking to ensure that we don't, you know, get caught in the web?
My apologies, Joke. Before you answer that one, sir, please note it in your notebook. This scare, was it valid? What happened? Why do we call it an Ebola scare?
Well, I'll tell you, to answer your question, yes, it was valid, a scare, because but there were 2 cases. One of them did not meet the case definition, so we stepped it up, although we tested just to be sure. Because there was a connection between the patient and her husband who had come from Congo. That's the thing. This second one was a real scare because he came in from Rwanda. And he came from Rwanda, ended up in Abuja. That one's the different topic later, ended up in Abuja. But I think in Rwanda, his doctor had said he was ill. Fever, I said, look, as soon as you get home, see the doctor. I even cited, they didn't test you for Lassa fever. And, but we got that from the doctor in Abuja. Of course, he was the one that not contacted the people that actually triggered our response reaction. The hospital, the patient volunteered, which is good. The hospital reacted well and notified us because that is a notifiable disease. If you see that kind of thing, it is by law notifiable. You must notify the health authorities. Now, because FCT is a state on its own, not this now, notified the epidemiologists in FCC who gathered his team to visit the hospital, did the necessary thing, but then we insisted he must take the sample, and the guy must be put on that. Because look at the history. Look at the history as clinical symptoms. He qualified as a case study. I mean, he met the case definition for Ebola. Now, we call it hemorrhagic viral disease. But because of recent history from that area, and we're not too clear that Rwanda is known for Lassa fever, so the first thing that comes to mind is Ebola. Make it as an Ebola suspect and treat it as that. And that's what we did. The normal systems was established. Now, to ask back to your question, is that now, what do you do? It's basically surveillance. Surveillance has its ramifications, and it also comes under emergency preparedness and response. If you don't do surveillance, it cannot detect any of these things, and we follow data, we follow information, typically like this one, they told us, at different levels. So, and in Nigeria now, we don't do just surveillance for a particular disease. We do what they call integrated. Right now, we are managing 8 or 9 outbreaks in this country. So, as soon as you are testing for a larger number of diseases, not at once. But depending on severity, like Ebola now is severe. And once you have it in one place, you have to be careful. That's why. So, you do surveillance, you start tracking the data, history, you have all sorts of things, going to data, everything like that, community messages, laboratory figures, but clinical data for hospitals, you track that. Now, because of the outside influence, you look at travel history, and of course now start with Port Health Services. You alert your Port Health Services who are part of that surveillance activity. The exercises they take into consideration too, like getting the declaration from before you come in. Those ask for symptoms, some kind of medical history. If there is a suspect that you qualify for this, they take you out when you come in, take you through some investigations to get more information. And if they feel it's positive, they hold you or send you to a lab to go and cross to check. If there's nothing else, you're allowed to go. That's the first line of defense. Now, if they miss that, but you have records to track him. So in this case, the guy came in from Rwanda, ended up in Abuja, going through airpeace again. Before that notification came, and that's why we went back. Port Health authorities now went back to Rwandan airline, looked at their patients list and everything like that, just to be sure that in case it was Ebola, we'll also start tracking contacts within the aircraft, both the people who came in Rwanda and the people whom Rwanda in the airport. So it could have been the normal standard procedure. In the process, you're testing the lab, the result in the lab, just to be sure that what you are doing. That lab takes a while because it's PCR. It takes about 5, 6 hours, 8 hours. Then the public health officers have set up their own things. Infection prevention group, because of the nature of Ebola, you tell the hospital what to do. You create an isolation room or something, just isolate the patient so that he will not contact people. you teach them how to protect themselves, because now, this house, Ebola, Lassa fever, the health workers are the first line of contact. They are one of the major casualties. So they need to protect themselves to be able to protect the thing. So that's in all those things again, as NCDC, we have long-term planning for this. One of them is stockpiling materials you probably would expect to need.
What about expiry dates and all that? Stockpiling.
Of course, you can't stockpile with the expired.
No, as in, you know, after a while, you have to change
after
them.
a while, I mean, there's a logistics system that goes after a while. But most times, you run out. So you, so you pack, prepare whatever it has to get medical countermeasures. It's not when the thing happens that I start running helter-skelter.
Right, you seem a lot, best prepared for this, because as in your stint as Commissioner for Health in Lagos State, you had to deal with the Ebola virus head on. I remember then because I was pregnant. I was just newly pregnant, and I couldn't go and see my doctors again because where the hospital where it first started, FCMC, that was where my consultant gynecologist was. So I couldn't see my doctors. It was horrible, really. But you know,
it's interesting. When that thing happened to the hospital,
yes,
the hospital never recovered.
Yes,
because of the stigma.
Yes, stigma.
And that's why again, what happened yesterday, because this things leaked and started circulating, and I was peeved. It shouldn't have, because it would have put the hospital, in fact, people started harassing the hospital. So that's why it needed to temper the thing, because next time, they will not tell us.
Yeah. Yes, that's
so
true.
This is have to be played down a bit until you are sure of what
it speaks to the question Joke just asked, but more specifically from the crisis communication perspective. Because in managing crisis, there is all of the infrastructure you talked about, the surveillance systems, the response system, but the messaging is another issue altogether. Talk to us about our preparedness, because you just said something that is very, 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 very important now. That if we don't manage the communication well,
yes,
we put the entire health infrastructure
I can tell you for sure, I was under severe pressure to blow this, and I said, relax, because if you don't manage it, you put into stampede. Nationally, you may not be able to control it. So get your facts correct. Put your systems in place. So just in case the thing was positive, you move well. Yeah. Because you move less. But once you start talking, if the distraction you get from people asking you this, asking you that, will disturb your process. And again, people rely on rumors. If they don't understand anything, they just concoct all sorts of stories. And that way they can stampede other people. So that's why I said, we need to tell people, communication lines must be controlled. Must be controlled. Unfortunately, during this social media thing, it's a major problem. Because once the thing gets there, you don't have control again. So ideally, again, that's why, in this kind of thing, it's a subnational level issue. Let's be frank. That's why FCT is a subnational there. They tried, because we supported. What if the other states
don't support?
You understand me? You have to have many, but again, if the communication is key, it needs to be controlled. I need to give the facts again at the same time, not lose the confidence of the confidence of the people. Okay, you understand? So it has to be controlled. Unfortunately, that's the area where there's a bit of a weak link. Are you with me? We medical people are not very good communicators, I've told you before. And there are many styles to communication and that kind of. So those are the things again. So people again, as we are going through again, you go through training, different aspects of things. Communications training case management, training even how to even distribute this materials you need for this thing from different states, especially if it's national. You have to move out these materials, but it's logistic systems. And you need to train people. So as you're going along, you're training people all along. So there are people who are training on the ground. There are people who are training on how to use the standard operating procedures. There are people who are training how to teach the laboratories where they've not used this kind of particular equipment before, they will need it here. You have to go and train them urgently so that they're able to do that. So it's a whole load of things, and that's why we picked it from the military. When you say emergency management systems, it's a military term. In war, it's a command and control system. In emergencies, you don't allow different people because it becomes chaotic.
Yeah.
So the first thing is that coordination and leadership.
But it also raises this question of preparing the people themselves. Because you just said something important now. We can't control how anyone feels about a thing.
Yeah.
And the first reaction of the average Nigerian or the average human is panic. So how do we prepare the people for such?
It's a good point. People think it's very easy. It's not easy. It's not to say, do this, do that, do this, do that. The focus now is to more like community engagement. And it's not a one-time thing. You have to look for people. And that's why in this kind of thing, apart from the medical people, you need sociologists, you need anthropologists who can go into the community, understand the community, the culture, the tradition, the way of life, the health-seeking behavior. With that now, you can now sit down and carve out proper messages in a way that is acceptable to them.
It must be a lot of work.
That's why it's part of this. You have to start preparing in time. So you prepare for anything happening. But you see, it's the same process for anything. It's just that when it comes to that particular disease, you amend the language.
But you said earlier, Prof. Dr. Idris, you said something about the states, subnationals. Again, forgive me. I go back to when I was growing up. There were environmental... Thank you. I'm just I'm thinking about the northerner who is watching this program. There are environmental sanitation officers.
But they're also in the southwest.
Who came, yes, I mean, I'm talking about...
Generally, right.
Who would come to your house if your water pot, aka fridge in those days, had any tadpoles that the Yorubas called Tanwiji? The pot is gone.
It's not tadpole.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's lava.
Lava. So now, I'm not sure that system is as efficient as it was then. That was some kind of preparedness at the time. So going back to the subnationals that you talked about, Dr. Idris, how do we get back there? Because that's more of a local government function.
You know, you're very right. Whatever we do in health security or in health, it's a subnational issue. Because you pick this disease either from one state or one local government. You see. And if you do not empower the government in those states, it's a waste of time because there's very little NCDC can do. Because you can't cover the whole country. So the focus now is to develop that subnational capacity for emergency preparedness. It's a huge task. That's the next focus. That's what we are addressing. One of that is what you're seeing here now. Yeah, we have the luxury of Wole in Lagos. Then, let's be frank with ourselves, a colonial thing they passed on to us. It's something that we're used to, and let's say it's selfish that they don't want mosquito to kill them, so they have to set up the system. But if you go to a nuclear state, you may not have Wole. Look, in Lagos here, you have moving, in those days, moving gutters or whatever it is. Yeah. Some of them may not move now. How many states have that kind of physical planning? And that's why nowadays a state experiencing heavy rainfall, you have massive flood for a long time because they had no drainage systems. No, let's be frank with ourselves. Health is not on its own.
Yeah, that's one of the first things we talked about.
If you don't have a physical planning, that's where environment comes in, engineering comes in. All this comes in. And you know, Ebola, Lassa fever, they call it the One Health platform. Between health, environment, agric, animal health, we are all this is come together. So in those communities, when you don't even have drainage system, what do you want to tell them? So if you don't understand the community themselves, their way of life, their culture, their tradition. As I said, this community engagement is key. That's the only way the community again will get, and it's not a one-time fix all. It's a prolonged thing. This is something now we should now focusing on. That should be the focus now. That's to get the community engaged in this, and it requires going to sit down in the community. Before, as doctors, we used to talk down on people. Drink hot water, drink cold water, don't take sugar, don't take this. They say yes, sir. But they go back to their places. They drink whatever they're drinking because you've not communicated with them. Because when you're communicating with them, if you give them the time to give a feedback to you, they will tell you the nuances in their own communities that two of you can work and partner with and make your work easier. And there's a research project going on in Ebola, one local government in Ebola, on Lassa fever. I came across it. I said, this research, what are people doing this thing? This is costing money. Come and brief me. I said, give me the report. You know, I read the report. I was so fascinated by it. I said, when you finish, we're going to repeat it maybe in another state. Because they just took two communities, went into it, in the context of the community engagement, sent people in, understood them. And because of that, now they were able to jointly plan how to assess their vulnerabilities, how to assess their risks, what their environmental practices are. And now they are the people leading that process. You're bound to have a reduction in Lassa fever in the area. But it's not a one-time thing. It costs money.
Okay, that's interesting. But I'm still a little...
befuddled.
No, not befuddled now. Unsure how we can engage the states to engage their communities.
Yeah.
You talked about Lagos, and it would seem like perhaps because Lagos has, quote unquote, enjoyed some kind of political trajectory.
Things have changed now.
Over time. So how do we make this a national thing? I once had to ask Mr. Babatunde Fashola, and he said, about this whole communication, he said, well, we can all agree that government is a poor communicator at any level. But without communication, we will not get ownership of the people. So how...
Let me tell you, there's a project now, that's the next phase. That's the focus. Sub-national development. And what we are doing is, we're creating a template from NCDC. Look at all the whole gamuts of emergency preparedness, aside from leadership, surveillance, detection, case management, community engagement, and look at the framework. We explain to them each state. They have a stake in it. It's not as if you're going back to them because, again, the language you use for maybe say Ekiti will be totally different from the one we're going to use for another state. So they look at, and they're going to look at the situation from the point of view of their own resource capability. What resources do they have to implement? We know that their resource issues are even worse than federal. Let's be frank with ourselves. But it's a long-term thing. The fact that if you don't do this, they will continue to be dependent on the federal. So they need to build that capacity. So we're going to push them, help them, develop those work plans, including community engagement. In fact, they can do this better than we can do from federal here. Because they understand, but again, embed the same people there. If they don't have the resource they need, we get support for them to get those resources. It's a long process, but it can be done.
Right. And what about...
and they're willing to.
Right.
Now that they're getting more money, right? Let them put more money. No, they're going to put more money there. Everything's not going to come from federal government. So we're looking at federal government, state government, be partners with support. And the state, as soon as they see some states get better, other people will join because competitive. Right, for example, only 4 states have written their emergency action plans.
Wow.
24 states. But we're helping them to develop such action plans so that they can take control of their own issues.
Right, and very quickly, we're running out of time. That's at the community and local levels. What about on the international level? What collaborations do we have with the international health bodies, to ensure that our positions are continually strengthened?
I'm going to answer it from 2 points. the international people want to collaborate with you because they don't want to carry their disease to their country somehow. So they will help you, whether you like it or not. But the money, it's about time we took care of our own problems. So, but right now, there are a lot of international bodies who are still interested in certain areas. They are even focused on developing sub-national capacity. So we're having cooperation from them. They are part and parcel of this process. They mean well. They mean well. So we're partnering with them. Some of them are putting down money. Some are putting down their resources, expertise in different aspects. So.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Idris. We know that you don't come to Lagos all the time, so every time you come to Lagos, we have the privilege to grab you like this. We'll always take it.
I'm sure next time in Lagos, I'm going to let you know.
Director General of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, Dr. Jide Idris. It's a pleasure again having you on the program with us.
My pleasure.
Okay, now, Joke was very eager to talk about employability or otherwise of graduates.
Yes.
Because the former minister of the Labor had said graduates are unemployable. We'll find out why, among other issues, when we return.
To stay with us.
Do what's right, never give up on it. Bring it on, bring it on. Are you ready? No matter how you try, don't you ever fall. Keep your head high.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us. You say we should bring it on? Well, we've brought it on. The skills gap. Why graduates struggle.
No.
I won't forget that minister. Should I mention his name? No, it's not. It's pointless. It was an interview conducted in our Puja studio on Sunrise Daily. I think it was about 2-3 years. No, yeah, about 2-3 years ago, maybe more. So the stark reality is that despite investing in higher education, many Nigerian graduates are struggling to find meaningful employment. Instead, they're forced to take up low-paying menial jobs just to make ends meet. Now, there are those who would wonder, when they go abroad, what do they do? But anyway, let's go there. Now, this trend raises critical questions about the value of education, the state of the economy, and the future of the Nigerian youth. So today, let's take a look at the root of this issue, from the mismatch between university curricula and industry needs to the lack of job opportunities and entrepreneurial support. Joining us this morning is Dr. Adetola Salau, who is Special Advisor to the Honorable Minister of Education, STEM and Corporate Sector Engagement. She joins us here in the studio. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Let me ask you that minister's question. We asked the minister pointedly. Minister said, quote me, our graduates are not employable. But, you know, let me first of all bring Engineer Titus Olowokere also into the conversation. He's president of the U.S.-Nigeria Business Council in Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, Dr. Salau, what do you feel about that statement that minister made at the time?
I'm smiling.
Yes, I see. You can see that.
I really want us to address the elephant in the room, which is something I'm also going to be speaking about today, which is a mismatch between what the skills that are needed in the marketplace are and the skills that are being taught. And why this is something that is so important to this current administration, I had to make sure that I came on here to talk about a lot of work that is being done to address this skills mismatch. There's a mismatch. If you watch, in fact, I don't even have to say if you watch. You don't have to watch. All you have to do is just constantly look at the news, listen to the conversations that we're having constantly. What are some of the key words that we've been using a lot in 2025 pointedly? AI, ChatGPT, digital literacy. What's another one that I'm coming to? Workforce readiness, being future ready. All of these things all converge at skills that our youth have to have, not just now, but to be able to be competitive in the future. with a global workforce, not just against themselves alone now. Because everything, the jobs are now global. You can sit in your house and you're doing work with somebody in Malaysia, in Canada, in Australia. So there are certain skills that you need to have to do that. And there's that mismatch of what is needed in that workforce versus what they are learning and the skills that they already have. So there needs to be a bridge. And that is what I'm going to be talking about today. What is that bridge, and what are the efforts done to alleviate, to make sure that our youth are climbing or are crossing and are utilizing that bridge?
Well, you have stylishly evaded my question, but I forgive you. Engineer Olowokere, please, speak to that as well. She's talking about this mismatch, and I've always struggled to understand Nigeria's education policy and curriculum. How few, in fact, I think it was 2 years ago, I tried to look at our education policy, education trajectory, and I was looking at the future in it. I couldn't see it. Maybe I wasn't looking right. What are your thoughts?
Well, thanks for that question. I agree with what she mentioned, that there's actually a mismatch between the curriculum in our higher institutions and the needs of the industry. But then that is actually not it's not a generally acceptable statement, because even though students might have learned something completely different in college, a lot of graduates now retrain themselves. The AI, the ChatGPT, the work alignment actually are tools to make the students a lot more employable. I mean, I live in Atlanta, and then a lot of workers here ask me they want employees from Nigeria. They're looking for software engineers from Nigeria. We have a large technology hub in Lagos. I left Ife, and I know at the University of Ife, the last time I was there, they have a very well-equipped software laboratory there where they actually train students. So in the broad sense, yes, it's a lot of mismatch, but in the same breath, a lot of people train themselves. The former Minister of Trade, and Lama, studied medicine in college. He's doing something completely different now. So what I'm saying in too many words is that that is not the sole factor responsible for graduate unemployment in Nigeria. The other factors we need to look at.
Right. It was part of the, what we were talking about earlier. We noticed that, I think we talked about the revenue. We were talking about FAC and sharing of revenue has gone to the states. And we also talked about the fact that, what is giving us an increase in, the amount of funds that can be shared is actually coming from the non-oil sector. You know that the informal sector plays a large role in, building the economy, building the GDP. And we're talking about skills gap. A lot of things that, we teach in schools. Now, if you're not a medical doctor, you go to train as a lawyer, an engineer, an economist. Those things are needed, yes. But how come, instead of just, I think Lagos State government and some other states now, they have some of their universities convert to those universities that is not just about being a doctor and a lawyer. You have vocational training as well. Can't we incorporate that into regular universities, some courses, such that when you do graduate, it's not just about, oh, this company is not employing me and all that.
And that was why I mentioned that word bridge. There was a reason, and he understood what I was doing. I was already segueing into what I was going to talk about, which is the work that we're already doing. I'm sure everybody knows, because it's been all over the news. There was a major curriculum revamp done by the Federal Ministry of Education. And a huge part of that revamp was embedding digital literacy, also embedding vocational skills and entrepreneurial skills into the main curricula. It wasn't sideways. It was into the bed of the main curricula for basic and senior secondary levels for the students. It was done there. And we had things like journalism. We were talking about what you just mentioned, AI training, seeing how we're going to start onboarding robotics. All those things were put in there into the main curricula. It wasn't sidelined. It was right there in the middle of everything that is being done, because that is the current reality that we must address now. Now, the thing is, of course, we're going to be talking about how do we upskill our teachers to make sure that they're able to facilitate this to the students, which is another topic, of course, to itself. But the key thing is that it's being
That's
addressed.
a very important, my apologies, that's a very important element. Here is why. They are the ones that are going to be teaching AI.
That's why I said...
because back then, the teachers knew how to use slates. And, what do you think? The teachers back then knew how to use slates. But today's teachers, I'm not sure they can use iPad. And guess what? A good number of the students are now required to everything is mostly CBT.
They're taking the test.
WAEC, even WAEC, that I'm sure you wrote longhand, Engineer Olowoke.
So did I.
Now you have to do CBT, computer-based testing and all. But I'm not even sure whether the teachers themselves are schooled enough in that digital space.
Thank you. But again, we shouldn't focus too heavily on the skills mismatch as a factor or as a dominant factor for the graduate unemployment in Nigeria. There are two factors I think we are overlooking. One of them is that disparity between the job creation in the economy and the graduate pipeline. We have over 200 higher institutions in Nigeria that churn out every year about 600,000 graduates. In sharp contrast, it's only about 50,000 jobs created in the economy, which includes in the government, in banking, in other sectors. So this huge disparity creates an issue, but the economy cannot absorb the graduates coming out of the institutions.
But my apologies, Engineer.
What do they do?
Just a second.
To media works,
my apologies.
To make ends meet.
My apologies, Engineer Olowoke. In the National Youth Service Corps program, entrepreneurial skills is integral. I have seen the documents. I have seen the things that they have to do. It is part of the reason I understand that they have to go to the local government every week. Entrepreneurial skills is one of those things integral in the NYSC scheme. Is that to say that we are not executing it the way it ought to be executed?
Exactly. See, we are not deficient of ideas in Nigeria. What we actually lack is implementation and enabling environment to make those programs successful. Yes, you did mention the entrepreneur program integrated in the NYSC, but then the graduate is done, is in the employment market. He has a beautiful business plan. He goes to the banks. He doesn't get the loan. Even when he does get a loan, the interest rate scares him off. The repayments program scares him off. He doesn't have the collateral to support those loans. There are so many entrepreneurs in Nigeria today that have beautiful projects, but even with the Bank of Industry, the regular banks, the Development Bank of Nigeria, they find it difficult to get loans. So it makes it difficult to actualize the entrepreneurial training they have gone through. So these are things, again, that limit graduates employment. And again, what do they do? They turn to the menial jobs to make ends meet. They have bills to pay, they have families to feed, and a gig economic job coming up, may pay about 50,000 naira a year or a month. They'll take it. They'll drive Uber. They do food delivery. They do Udemy training. They do Fiverr, so freelancers. Everything they can do to make ends meet. So the entrepreneurial program is not enough. We need the government to also enable them to get support.
I hear you 101, but I would like to bring another angle into this conversation, difficult as it may sound. And that is the end of entrepreneurial, the end of volunteerism. I know that in the system where you have operated, you know that volunteerism is an easy way to get experience. and through which you can tell anyone, look, I have this experience in this thing. But it will seem like that's not really our thing in this part of the world. I say that because with an entrepreneurial mindset, you really can start a business with zero naira. I have done it twice, and I know what I'm talking about. So once you have the skills and you know exactly what you want to achieve, it is possible. It's not easy, but it's just possible to start with zero. And then as you grow skills, as you grow capacity, you can actually, expand. Just as you said, I mean, once people can see what you have done before, that it has viability, then anyone should be able to buy it. What do you think, sir?
To say, I don't know the kind of businesses you started with zero capital, but I know that sounds rather utopia. In reality, in Nigeria, anywhere in the world, there's hardly any business you can start with zero capital. And it also depends on the kind of business you are working on. In most cases, you still need some basic infrastructure, you still need some basic equipment to get started. Probably the only thing you can do will be software development, which just requires your skill. But when it comes to entrepreneur, buying and selling, having projects you want to put out there or deliver goods and services, you do need some capital. And if the capital is not there, it makes mockery of the training you've gone through.
I do understand. I understand 101% what you're saying, Engineer Olowokere, but this is not to talk about me, but what is possible. Well, I think Dr. Salah would like to add a word or two to that.
I want to add something to that. I actually understand about creating an enabling environment, and we are working on things around that. Right now, we are working on private-public partnerships where we're trying to work on internship opportunities, also volunteering opportunities for our youth from tertiary institutions. We're also working on grants for students who have proof of concept and traction already for businesses. You'll be hearing more about this. Grants that will be coming up for the students at the tertiary institutions. And I have to say, a lot of this really comes down to, when I said a mismatch, what I was referring to was the fact that we only have 30% of our tertiary students in STEM fields, compared to other nations like Malaysia, China, where it's 42%. And you can notice that those nations, they have more of a knowledge-based economy. You have people from around the world coming there to utilize the skills that they have. So we need to increase the number of our tertiary students and the graduates in those kind of fields so that we can have more people in the knowledge economy. Yes, they are training themselves, and we are working on supporting them with programs that will be centered around training them in TVET, in STEM. You're going to be hearing a lot more about these programs. We even had a launch and a whole rollout around programs around vocational training. That's TVET. You'll be hearing more and more and more about this. In regards to entrepreneurship training, when I worked in Lagos State, we did entrepreneurial programs for our youth from secondary schools, junior and senior secondary schools, where we train them on how to write business plans, how to put around revenue projection, what are the other things in regards to when you're looking at money? Anyway, things around income statements, there you go. How to do that. There's another one that's return on investment. All those important numbers for businesses, we taught them that, and how to, of course, pitch your business. And we taught them what he was saying, which is really, really key. How do you start a business with little or no funding? Because a lot of times, whether we like it or not, the real world will come into play and come at you. How do you work around that so that you get to the place where even if you have these obstacles, you're already putting something together, you're already running something, and then friends and family and other people come and also put into you, and then you get to that place where you're viable and people say, okay, I've seen something, that's why we call proof of concept, I can come and invest with you. A lot of these businesses that we see around us, people didn't just invest in them immediately. They also had to put in that work. They had to grind and get to that place where people said, okay, I can see something here. It's viable, it's working, the market likes it, and we're going to put into it. We also need to teach them resilience, because that's what it is. We have to teach resilience And we have to teach creativity. We have to teach being creative and being able to...
Do you also teach thinking? Just, I don't know. I know she has questions for you.
Yes, yes.
Do you also, because it's one of the things, and I don't know if Engineer Lowokere will agree with me on this, because mindset is crucial, Dr. Salau. Mindset is crucial. Is there a program around that? And I'm asking that because this whole idea of skills gap, it's one thing to have the certificate. It's one thing to have proof that you went to school. It's even another thing entirely that, okay, you have experience, you have 10 years experience on this job, and you're not able to deliver. It has happened before, it is still happening, so is there a way...
That's where these public-private partnerships, where we're working with industry, to have experts, to have people who come in to work with these students as mentors, and also provide them opportunities where they have internships, real-world experience. It really comes in handy. To me, there's nothing that beats that sitting down with somebody who's been through and walked that path of where you're trying to go and has made those kind of mistakes. You are still going to make mistakes regardless. You talked about
without mistakes, without mistakes, there is no learning. But you know, okay, yes, and you know, okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to mention this is a full scenario. What Dr. Salau has mentioned is preparing the graduates for employment, getting them trained, giving them all the skills they need to go out there and get something going. But what about the industry? What about the employers? How do we get them ready to absorb these students? That is the discrepancy. That is why they don't have the jobs. You go, a lot of people on internship today go to the companies, they want looking for a job, and no vacancy, no vacancy, no vacancy. What are they going to do? Then they have to resort to the menial jobs. What I would suggest to Dr. Dalao and to the government is, get the industry ready to absorb these graduates. Incentivize them. For instance, you could create a tax credit for X number of graduates that you are employed, and then it doesn't come out to the bottom line of the company. They know it's tax deductible. It could be special focus on ICT, on agriculture, on alternative energy employment, creates opportunities for jobs to be there, give the companies special loans, for instance, so that they can have opportunities to absorb these graduates when they actually come out. So I think we should look at both sides when we are making planning for these youths.
Well,
Get the industry ready to absorb them.
I know that Dr. Salah will have a response to that, but this message from Stephen Onua, I think it is to you, Engineer Olowokere. He says, only about, and this he's writing on X, so only about 30% of students in Nigerian tertiary institutions really study to learn. Not that they are taught, but they study to learn, be knowledgeable, and work towards being employable. Many just pay their way through all courses and all years in school, essentially saying some just go to school to earn the certificate, not essentially because they need it.
That's why the point you mentioned earlier comes to the picture, that some graduates are actually not employable. They don't have the skills that the industries need. Yes, you're right. They just go there to learn. They just want to go there to pass through the universities. And when they are done, they come out in third class or in B. But most companies that are versatile, that are profitable, that are growth-oriented in Nigeria have minimum requirements in most cases 2-1. If they don't meet that threshold, they don't employ you. It doesn't matter where you come through. So yes, you're right. But then on the other side is, many of such graduates have learned to retrain themselves, to learn new skills, to align themselves with industry needs. Nobody teaches AI in school right now, but there are so many content creators out there that use AI consulting to solve industry problems. And that's one thing we need to encourage. And I'm sure you mentioned that point earlier on about critical thinking. Mindset. When you have a positive mindset, you have a can-do mindset, you have an achiever's mindset, obstacles ahead of you become easily surmountable. And that's one thing, again, we need to inculcate in our students. Not just the skills, not just the training, but to have a positive, can-do, go-getting mindset. It helps to clear many obstacles. So it's a whole lot we need to bring it together, but we need to prepare the students.
Okay, and you know, okay, just one thing before we come back to Dr. Salau. Is there a way to teach intrapreneurial skills for people working in any organization, even in school, to say, okay, this is the value I can add? Because a good number of times when we're talking about business, people thinking about business more from the bottom line, more from profits. But I think things have changed a lot from just profit and loss to value addition, which is one of the integral, philosophies in the head of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, if my mind is right on that. Is there a way to teach or inculcate intrapreneurial mindset in our young?
Are you asking me or Dr. Salau?
No, it's for you, sir.
Oh, yes, actually so, which is why even now in universities in Nigeria and all over the world, they don't just teach things in line with your program. I did engineering when I was in college at Ife, and there's always electives, mandatory electives to take in sociology, in psychology, and in other social sciences. These fields are meant to challenge you to critical thinking. Philosophy makes you redefine who you are, makes you challenge your very existence sometimes, have critical analysis of circumstances. So we already have them. I don't know if they still have them now, but they need to develop those so that graduates look beyond what they study, they look beyond the opportunities in front of them, and they can now challenge themselves, challenge the industry, challenge the world, because the world is just a stage, and they can conquer the world if they have that mindset to do so.
Right. And Dr. Salau, someone else is asking a question.
Yes.
That's Olanrewaju. He's saying he wants to know who is monitoring, what the universities, what the lecturers are teaching, the materials they're using to teach. For instance, he quotes an intern working with him in his company he believes that the lecturers are using outdated materials for an engineering course to teach.
Software engineering.
Software engineering to teach. Things have moved along. How do we check that? This is, we know that we say we shouldn't leave everything to government, but some of these universities are public universities. How do we check that?
That's NUT. That's NUT.
NUT or C?
NUC, sorry.
Right.
NUT is teachers. I'm mixing my
we
abbreviations. Yes, there are so many of them. Yes, NUC. I believe that is all of us to call and make them accountable. You see, this work with the curriculum was not built in a day. And that's why I used the word ongoing when I had mentioned the reform that had happened recently this year around the curriculum. A lot of people have been clamoring for it for years. I am one of them because I'm a curriculum expert myself. And I noticed you pointed at yourself as a parent.
Yes. I'm one of them. I say that because, as I have young children,
yes.
young, and, I get tired. I can say I'm an old mom. Do you understand? I'm not a...
Because they're asking you questions.
Because I'm not a 20... No, it's not that I'm not a 25-year-old mom. Do you understand? I'm more advanced than that. And you have to revise for the exams with them. And I see my 10-year-old trying to read for 13, 14, 15 subjects. Why?
And all of that are things that we've revised. You notice that we've streamlined the number of subjects for basic, we've streamlined the number of subjects for senior secondary. That was huge. That was huge. Having the students have such an enormous workload, it was too much.
It's too much.
So you see that's a reform. So by people clamoring for it for years and pushing and driving and having the right people at the right place for it to happen, and that's why I like the name that we have, is the Renewed Hope Agenda, what we're trying to do. We've been clamoring for this, we've been pushing for this. We have the right people who are now saying, look, this is very important, this is very critical. The Honorable Minister made sure he conveyed all the right people at the table, the NERDC, everybody to sit down and say, what do we need to do to change this?
Can I again come in here?
Yes.
The major part of my schooling took place in England. My parents lived there at that time. My elder brother, once he was in his penultimate year in secondary school, he sat down. They sat them down with a counselor and a career advisor. What do you want to do? I want to be an engineer. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be this. So yes, I understand we used to have them, but I don't know, we don't have them. So they now go to their final year in secondary school with just those subjects they need to study to proceed to college or university so that they can, but we don't do that anymore. When we got back to Nigeria, my brother refused to attend some certain classes and they had to call my father and tell him he's in science class, he has to do this. And he said he had already done his career counseling in the UK and he knew that he didn't have to do these subjects. And they said, you're now in Nigeria. That's on one point. Almost 30 years later, I have someone I call my younger sister, when she was in her SS2. She read her older sister's JAMB syllabus, which told her that apart from the 4 subjects she needed to study for JAMB, for WAEC, she didn't need more than 5 subjects to pass, to go to whatever university she's going, not do 10 or 8 subjects in WAEC. So she went to her counselor in a private secondary school and said, I don't think I need Yoruba, I don't need French, I don't need this. These are the only subjects I need for what I want to study. And they told her, she had to say, I've read the syllabus, I know my rights. You can't tell me. So, and they knew. So they agreed with her, but they told her, please don't spread the news to your classmates because all of them will now say they're not doing. So they made her sit in those classes, but she didn't do the exams in school. So when it came to WAEC, she only studied for 5 subjects, she passed. And she was a top student, she was head girl, she was an A student, but she didn't want to burden herself with reading for 8 subjects when she can read for 5 only. So how do we get back to that?
And that's what we just did. That's why I love...
I mean at the senior level now.
I'm talking about the senior level too. And that's why I love what just happened recently with the curriculum reform, that it was really streamlined where an art student does not have to burden themselves with all those extraneous subjects. They are just streamlined and focused on what is important, plus some of these key skills that we've all correctly identified. Engineer even agreed with us that are important, like the entrepreneurial skills, being able to critically think. It's embedded in some of the other subjects that are there. And make sure that they are also digitally literate because they have to compete in this global reality that we are in now. All of that was embedded in there. And to me, it makes them a much more holistic student.
Okay. Engineer Olokere, first of all, let me ask you straight up, how significantly do you think the reforms that Dr. Salau is talking about is going to make a difference? And from what you know, how soon do you see us getting the benefits? I know that the government official here is going to tell us tomorrow, but from your own perspective, how soon do you see this miracle happening?
Well, thank you for the question. I applaud Dr. Salawo's work. I respect the fact that she's a curriculum expert. And I must also mention that the curriculum development or streamlining of the programs, of the courses the students do in school might not yield the desired results. For the reason that education, which is why it's called education, a total education, doesn't just depend on learning the things directly in line of your employment goal, but also learning things that make you a completely educated person. You might feel psychology is irrelevant because you're an engineering student, at least the first year or so. But down the road, as you go to the employment market, you experience the psychology of interpersonal relations. You experience the need to get along with others. You have a little bit of knowledge of human resources. That's on one side. So I feel education should be complete, not segmented or selected. That's on one hand. On the other hand, I also believe that the educational development should not be just government alone. They need to bring in the private sector. Yes, the curriculum in our schools today are theoretical, mostly out of tune with the reality of the days. But then out of tune with what? With the industry. Why don't we invite many people in the technology sector, in the banking sector, in the oil and gas sector to be part of the curriculum development in our institutions, so that by the time the students leave, they're actually learning things that are relevant to the industry. I think this will go a long way to make them more employable as they go out there into the employment markets.
Please allow me to interject into that, engineer. I'm also an engineer, by the way, sir. Engineer who is an educationist now. So you can see that when I'm saying this, I'm very passionate about this, sir. We did invite these experts. We have a roundtable working groups around EdTech who are all sitting down with us there at the ministry, at the federal ministry, working together on what is our roadmap for what we're utilizing in the classrooms, both in the public and private classrooms, sir. And then also, we're also talking, you have noticed that the Honorable Minister is not just talking about our students who are in the classrooms in this public and private. He's also talking about the students who are out of school. How do we address their needs? So we're looking at, there's a whole plethora of issues that we have to work on and address, sir. And yes, one of the key things you said that we are doing is that's why you're hearing me sitting down here as a person on corporate sector. We are sitting down having massive engagement with the private sector, sir. This work, as you correctly said, sir, correctly, cannot just be done by government alone. It has to be done by all hands being on deck together, sir. And we're all doing that. We're all working together. We're putting heads together. This policy that came around for the curriculum, sir, as I said, and another parent attested to this. I'm a parent myself. It's been years in the working, sir. And all the people came together and they clamored, and the Honorable Minister had a table of all these people sit down. What are the key things that we need to address? First of all, the workload. Everybody there was a consensus across the board. The workload was too much. That was reduced. The number of subjects for the students in junior secondary basic and in senior secondary has reduced, sir. All the students, I'm yet to meet any student who has not met me, either when I go for programs to speak or even privately, that has not said, oh my God, this was one of the best things that happened recently. And I agree with them. All of this came about from people in private and public, all clamoring, coming to work together, sir. Sir, it is very important that we understand that education, as you said, and I agree, but I also disagree too, sir. There is a huge part of it that takes place outside the classroom, but there is a huge part of it that takes place inside the classroom, sir. The students spend at least 8 hours, 7 to 8 hours every day in the classroom with the teachers, and they are being facilitated on all these different knowledge, sir. So what takes place there is very important, and that's why this work that we're talking about around the curriculum, sir, is so critical, and it's really, really key. And when we're talking about, even he agrees that the most important people that are in this discourse for us to make sure that this is very robust are the teachers, sir. So there's so much work that is being done right now, sir, by this relationship through private and public. What can we do together? How do we get our students future ready for the workforce of tomorrow? That is the key message that all of us should be driving and working and striving towards right now, sir.
Right, and if I may just add to that, I'm also of the opinion that, there are, core subjects that we always talk about, English, maths, whatever, biology, add maths if you want, in sciences and arts. But there are some subjects, especially at the primary level, that you teach on just a need-to-know basis, like history, for example. You teach it because they need to know the history of their country.
And it's there.
But you don't necessarily have to test it. Do you understand? That's what I'm saying. Because it's so voluminous that, they have to read a lot. You teach on the need to know, but it's not all subjects that need to be tested. And then I raise the issue with the school management. They say, oh, it's the parents that are clamoring for this and clamoring for that, but
it's another topic for another day.
Which is another topic for another day. Thank you very much. You got my cue.
Yes.
Because
we'll go there, we'll go to another box.
Yes.
Huge box.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. Dr. Tola Salau is a special advisor to the Minister of Education on STEM and other issues. We thank you for your time today, as well as Engineer Titus Olowokere, who is President of US-Nigeria Business Council, joins us from Atlanta, Georgia. We sincerely appreciate your time and the sacrifice you took to join us this morning, Engineer Olowokere. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Now, earlier, Joke was very, very excited about the World Cleanup Day.
I was?
Maybe because she's a woman, I don't know, but you'll find out why when we return from this break. To stay with us.
Welcome back, everyone. What do you know? It's World Cleanup Day. That's today, September 20th.
Maybe because it's also a Saturday morning, but don't even mind me. Just
Because it's a Saturday morning. Right, so World Cleanup Day, held annually on September 20th, is a global movement to tackle waste crisis by uniting millions of people to conduct cleanup actions, raise awareness about waste, and promote a more sustainable and waste-free world. I don't know how that can happen. The main theme for World Cleanup Day 2025 is tackling textile and fashion waste through circular fashion, highlighting the urgent need to address the massive amount of clothing waste generated annually, and promotes responsible consumption, reuse, and recycling within the fashion
circular fashion
industry.
Is that why we are coming back to it? Yes, you were saying.
Since December 2023, the United Nations has officially recognized September 20 as World Cleanup Day, an international day to encourage citizens, governments, and organizations to collaborate on waste management and cleanup efforts. Well, we do have Saturday cleanups in most states across Nigeria.
What I'm saying?
So, but how effective is that?
See what I'm saying?
Our guest today is Dr. Stella Ebe, the strategic pillar lead biodiversity, climate change, and pollution programs. That's a lengthy, quite a lot. Thank you for joining us on the program.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
By the way, I like that.
Thank you.
First of all, circular fashion.
Circular fashion. Like that means maybe things don't go out of fashion.
Wait first.
Okay, I'm not a fashion expert, but I think the circular fashion thing is from an adaptation from the circular economy. And so that whatever we do in production, it goes back into that cycle. And we have less waste from the production process. And that is one of the main things being highlighted today. And we can adopt it. So I think it has to do with threshold, really. And the world is now, there is now an amber on what is coming out of consumerism in terms of fashion. And I also was really, it's an interesting topic. And looking at it, I realized, okay, fashion trends move on very rapidly. And so you have a lot of work going on in that space. So if we are not feeding it back into the system, then we have a huge amount of waste in our hands from that.
What do fashion designers call those things?
Yeah. So, but what's now with the theme for the year, the World Cleanup Day 2025, talking about textile and fashion waste. What are we looking at here?
So all of it begins from the production. A lot of water goes into the production of textiles. And it's been found that most of this contains chemicals that are toxic to human and the ecosystem space generally. And when released, it goes into landfills and then washes into our waters. And that is the connectivity for humans and every other entity in the ecosystem space. And we now have to raise that awareness for consciousness to go into that production space so that there's going to be this reduction in the amount of raw materials that you're using for such production, and then we can have less waste, because it's not something that is restricted to developing countries or developed world. It's a general problem globally, and so that is why the awareness is very important.
Right, and you know, it's one thing to come up with these celebrations or marking of days. Or setting aside these dates to create awareness about certain issues. But is it just enough to set these dates aside? How much awareness really is being created, especially, you know, in countries, you know, like we are now? People probably just don't know that there's an attempt to want to clean up, or there's an attempt to get people to do this because of the positive effects of, you know, being able to be in line with these, you know, cleanup efforts. Yes, yeah.
Global efforts. Yeah. So education is one thing, but again, it has to go beyond awareness and to adopting policies and also modifying policies in response to current realities. We know that in Nigeria, for example, we have a lot of policies as regards to waste management. But what, again, with those policies, are we reviewing them with current trends? And so beyond the general awareness that, goes to the public, there has to be awareness, even at policy level, that reflects that, okay, in the past, when you hear of pollution, for example, for Nigeria, I would say crude oil waste or municipal waste. But then now we know that production of textiles is increasing as population is also increasing. And so it has to transcend beyond just awareness to talking to the real change makers when it comes to policy, because without policy, everything now becomes a message. We know about it, but there's no enforcement.
Interesting that you talk about policy, but perhaps one of the challenges we've had over time, maybe from your experience as well, is that as far as laws and lofty, ingenious policies go, we are very rich. Where it's in the enforcement of those policies. You've talked about the people who are critical in this. At the core of these are tailors. At the core of these are people who wear clothes. At the core of these are fashion designers and all of those things. So even if we have policy, I'm not sure how much contribution the fashion designers, the cloth makers, the designers, the textile industry, I'm not sure how much input they have in those policies.
Yeah, so everything evolves, and so what we know, we have to now seek how to engage different stakeholders. So the fashion world, for example, this is a conversation to be taken to them. I am not a fashion expert, but I'm also learning through the World Environment Day that fashion can contribute to the impact of climate change, to pollution of underground water. And so seeking ways to engage the fashion industry, the textile production industry, and so they can understand how the impact of what they do contributes to climate change and contributes to our well-being generally is something that has to be done. Now, like you said, policies are not very easy to implement. And so education and pushing for change in behavior and response to these things is something that we have to be intentional about. And I think that with conversations like this, it's one of the key steps to get that message out there.
I'm not sure we even know how severe the problem is. For instance, I'm looking at information here now that says about the world produces about 92 million tons of textile waste each year, making it one of the biggest environmental challenges today.
Exactly.
Do you think we are all remotely aware of this severity?
Definitely not. The knowledge about that space is very limited, but I'm glad that we're beginning to talk about it, but it's going to move beyond that to engaging and expanding the space where this is discussed. And so people are aware. Also, you'd find that the way we manage this waste is also very important, because burning of textile waste, for example, if you go to the local tailor in your area that finish their work, they will burn. And all of that is also dangerous as well, and it impacts human beings. So when we know that the impact is not just abstract, it's a reality, then people can be more conscious of their contributions towards that.
Let me make it worse. You forgive me, because as I'm getting the data myself, I'm getting an uppercut. That it takes hundreds of years for any clothes made from synthetic fibers like polyester, nylon, and all to decompose.
Yeah.
Now, and it takes about 2,700 liters of water to make a single cotton shirt.
Yeah.
That's how much water now? That's what one person drinks in 2.5 years.
Exactly. Do you use your shirt, a single shirt, for 2.5 years?
So this is a big problem.
Yes, it is.
And it means then it shouldn't just be an observance? It should be an annual, year-round campaign.
Sure. So it's good that we are shining the spotlight on textile. There's a whole lot of other waste around us, and we're dealing with it every day. It's just that it's good to actually have the data on, you know, the different things that we're talking about: municipal waste, textile waste, industrial waste, and all of that. And we talk to these issues every day. But it's great that, you know, we set aside these days where we raise really information, and we can make people more aware of what the main information is, because it can gear us up to action.
So now that we are here, where do you think we can go from here?
So I think it behoves on everyone, from individuals, proper use of what we have, and so that we are not over-consuming, because that also contributes. So on individual level, managing what we have so that we are not over-consuming and producing too much waste, but also talking to industries as well, especially since this is highlighted. What are the better ways of managing the waste from all of this industrialization efforts? It's a key. We can speak to it, but there is a lot to be done in terms of research and better ways of managing the waste from some of this production process.
And how can we manage, you know, waste better? We're always talking about let's clean up our environment. We talk about the agencies of government that are responsible, you know, for pickup and, you know, disposal of waste. But how do we manage it better?
I'm not a waste manager.
I know, but you know, because of you know about the effects of waste pollution and the damage it can cause, and we know that we can do better in managing the situation. So what suggestions do you have in, you know, ensuring that these things are done the way they're supposed to be?
Well, there are countries that are doing it better, and we can borrow from that. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, especially where it works. And one of the main challenges when it comes to waste management is that when you don't separate waste from the source, then you have to use it and make it into landfills, or they return to our waterways and all that. But that initial stage of separating waste from the source is very key, because that way you can then reuse those things that are still useful, or you can recycle, take it back into the production space. And then for those that are non-biodegradable, then they can be disposed in a safe way. Else, if it's together, then you have to destroy land, do sand fields over and over, and then it has its long-term impact.
And instead of keeping things and throwing it away, you can give it away. I have, for instance, like last week, personal level, I sent some little girls' dresses to a baby. My daughter wore them over a decade ago.
Exactly.
And I sent them to someone whose child is just about 6 months. And in the picture, it looks as good as new. Like, really, you pass it on.
Exactly.
You know, so I don't know, that's, you know, recycling and all that, because, hey, in 100 years.
Yeah, and even thrifting is becoming a thing, so we don't have to.
You know, people used to look down on thrifting,
exactly.
But now I think it's.
But now we call it thrifting, right? Not second-hand anymore. So maybe it's cooler.
So you know, for me, because okay, maybe I should ask it this way. Do you think this is a national issue or
subnational one?
Or subnational one?
It's global.
Wow.
And
no. If we're to domesticate it, because I saw the yesterday or the before yesterday, I had reason to look at the Olusosun dump. It is higher than a 2-story building, and higher than a 3-story building. And there are people are already putting structures on top of that heap. I know that the Lagos State government is thinking about moving it away from, you know, where it is, maybe to somewhere else. If we check, I'm almost certain that we'll find some textile waste of like maybe 30 or 40 years ago in that heap. So if we're looking at it from that perspective, we'll probably say it's a subnational issue. Are there location-specific initiatives that can help this initiative to go faster? Or is this something that it's a world standard minimum? For instance, do you think we need waste management initiatives different from what we have in Canada than what we have in Lagos?
So I think generally states that have huge populations, they produce more waste.
Yeah.
And so you have to now drive an effective system that will work better in those spaces than areas with low population density. So for Lagos, I know that following the story of Lagos, there was an evolution in the Loma story over the years. And I think there's always been a need to respond to current situations and conditions. So I think for states, it will now be to look at how it can be better done. You've had situations, for example, in Lagos where you collect, there are waste collectors going from house to house and all that. But I think one of the biggest challenges is where this ends up. It ends up in landfills. These landfills can't take them. Obviously, we have them around and all that. So there has to be a review of what is happening with that. And this is also, if you go to Port Harcourt, for example, in certain areas, you still find these issues. In waterways, you have huge waste being disposed in waterways. So major cities must evolve more efficient mechanisms towards tackling waste compared to low-density areas. If you go to rural areas, they produce less. The cleaning up system is simpler, really, compared to what we have here in the metropolis.
Now, there is something I saw a little earlier. The traditional model we have in the fashion industry is what they call take, make, dispose. But now you are talking about repair, resell, recycle, and all of that. Yeah. How easy is that journey likely to be?
The ease of doing that is something that one has to start, because if you don't start it, you don't know what the challenges will be. But trying to utilize all that we have at every point that we have it, and then piecemeals from tailoring activities can be converted to something else. Maybe not necessarily clothes, maybe fashion, other fashion pieces. These are simpler things that people can do at the smaller level. But when you then go to the production level, like the textile, because that's where the volume comes in, then a lot of research has to go into how we can refine the process.
How about conscientizing the stakeholders, just as you mentioned earlier? How do we get to that?
Education, mapping your stakeholders, for example, engaging them based on what they can understand at the levels that they can understand. The conversation we're having here, for example, how do we scale it to the associations, for example? How do we scale it to the industries? And this involves also working with relevant agencies of government. Because for government, I don't think that what they always want to do is penalize. If you raise awareness, even in collaboration with government, then government has little to do when it comes to enforcing. And it's easier because the truth is, when it comes to the resources to do this enforcement, that is where government is limited, because it's also not enough. It's never enough when it comes to penalizing.
Right, and we don't know what we're talking about, the theme for this year's celebration. We talked about textile waste. Now, it's a state like Lagos. We can't touch on all states, but, we're here. And I think generates over 1,000 tons of textile waste daily, and that's about 8% of the total daily waste, which is just slightly over 13,000 tons, I think. I think there are plans to ban textile waste from the landfills, so they probably won't be as two-story high anymore, as we have observed.
But for now.
But for now. So, I mean, how do you think this can be executed? Because there may not be so much control on what people throw out and what gets dumped
to those areas.
Anyway. So this sorting and whatever it comes down to, but how do we have it in? I do not want to say more developed world, because we are enlightened as in Nigeria. We can't keep telling ourselves that we're not developed. Do you understand? So in other climes, you have where they sort, you have bins for everything, so that you know what goes where. How do we make this effective?
All right, I know that we are growing in the single-use plastic, for example, and you have different technologies around, people making it easier for the everyday person to walk to areas, do their exchange, trade by barter sort. And it's come from education and raising awareness across all levels. And I think that this is the way to go about it, taking the awareness to the grassroots level, so people can understand. The person that is throwing away textile waste, for example, probably knows that, oh, there's something being done about plastic waste, but they don't know that this can also be done for textile waste. And so that's it. Awareness at all levels is one of the ways to start.
What about this waste to wealth initiative? I mean, it shouldn't just be government alone. I think if we drive it, a lot of people can actually benefit from it. There was someone some years ago, I think one of our programs, Eco and Africa, traced a guy that, you know, children paid school fees with garbage.
Exactly.
You know, they weigh the value of the garbage, and then the value of it in naira terms. They collect it, and then your child can stay in class and go to school, and they pay with garbage, not with currency.
Exactly, and even you have a lot of recycling activities where plastic is being used to produce bags and all that, and this can fit into that as well. If you take textile waste, and instead of buying new materials to tie things together and all that, a lot of production is coming from that, and people are embracing it. So this is something we can also
even arts
channel. Yes, even arts.
I'm even surprised that this is an issue, because the so-called masquerades, they don't use it anyway.
They use pieces of
time for us to go.
Thank you very much for joining us on the program. It was a pleasure having you, Dr. Stella Egbe, Strategic Pillar Lead, Biodiversity, Climate Change and Pollution Programs.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
So when we return, we want to go to another school. We'll find out what we are doing in that school when we return for Lifestyle. Thank you so much for staying with us. Now, there is this story making the rounds about some boys in a school behaving in a particular way. Of course, the Lagos State Lagos Police Command said that the incident, occurred much earlier in April, and that they launched an investigation into the whole stuff. And they said that the principal of the school, who also serves as the proprietor, was invited for questioning, and said the students seen in that viral video had already graduated and left the institution. But we understand that they are cooperating fully with investigators from the state's criminal investigation department to uncover the full circumstances surrounding the incident. I don't know whether to say it is good that they have left this school, or it's worse.
Who knows whether they have passed on the trend?
Exactly, my fear. Exactly, because if they have left secondary school and they are in uni now, what are we having?
And nothing was done about it before they graduated.
Exactly.
We only saw what happened after they left.
Yeah, and if this
I'm sure people
also
are wondering what we're talking about.
If this also goes into the workspace, what kind of legislators are we going to be having? What kind of policemen are we going to be having? Soldiers are we going to be having? Well, it's about that video making the rounds about some boys in Ikorodu, in a school in Ikorodu, taking drugs, smoking this and all of that. That's what we're talking about this morning. But so let's look at the issue. In the event that it is happening in a school you are aware of, but you don't want to tell us, don't just look straight. This morning we have with us to discuss this issue a certified family systems engineer by the name Mr. Deji Shoumi joins us here in the studio. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. It's good to be here.
When you interrogated the issue, your thoughts are around the line of whether or not the problem is the failure of the family system or a problem of peer pressure. Which one does it tend to more for you?
Okay, why I looked at it from that perspective to look at the issues closest to it, I think it's a myriad of issues. It's not just those two. It's a system. It's a breakdown of a system. That's what it feels like to me. It's not isolated. First of all, I feel bad for the school and the ownership of the school, because if you look at it deeply, it feels like they are being scapegoated, because the 11th commandment is, thou shalt not get caught. Now, if everybody's going to point fingers at them, you are not being fair, because it's probably going on in your school, your child's school, that school in your community, and everywhere else. Because you look at it, that is it the family? Is it the parents? Because the parents have to chase money, meaning that they're not available physically. And if they're not available physically, they can't really be available emotionally.
Are these not boarding students?
Yeah, so you say that the responsibility has gone to the boarding school or the school management to take care of them at that point in time. But those children still came from a family. So the values you have from where you've come from is going to stay with you. Now, let's look at the point of peer pressure. Peer pressure is a thing, acceptance and all of that. And all social media has done is to amplify the negatives in our society, making it look cool to deal in particular things. But when we look at it from the underneath, from the underbelly, then what we will find out is that it is not about the drug abuse or the alcohol abuse, or that they had the temerity to go and video that and even release that video online. It's the fact that they were just trying to cope with something. What are they coping with? Is it the hopelessness that we face because of the lack of employment or the lack of a tomorrow, so to speak? Is it the problem that we are going through whereby nobody's attending to us socially or emotionally? Our emotional anxieties, our social anxiety is not being fed by any parent, any guidance, any mentor or any role model, really, because they are alone at the end of the day. Everybody requires that bond. As a community, as a whole, are we broken?
Yeah.
And that's where I think it is. Because if you think that there are not some parents who are also coping with their own life problems through drugs and alcohol, you might be mistaken.
Right, but okay, I'm so sorry.
Please go ahead.
There's also this, this is just one of the instances that we have seen. We've seen cases where students have been sexually abused. We've seen cases where bullying has led to, well, allegedly led to death of some students. There seems to be this trepidation about, children going to boarding school. Now, even where you have girls only on mixed schools, there's this trepidation too that they may end up, quote unquote, boys liking each other and girls liking each other. I really don't want to say too much. Right. So this is just one of the issues. There's the trepidation saying my child is not going to boarding school because I don't know what the child will face. We may teach our children to be good, come from a good home, but peer pressure, you never know what they will get up to when they get to school.
I believe what you just said, and it is true to a large extent. It's just that there are other things. First of all, is it every parent that put their child in the boarding school that A, it was because they wanted the child to learn independence and being able to solve their own problems by their own, or B, they did not have time to take care of their child. So they thought the safest place to put that child was in there. Children have come from different kind of homes to come in there, and it is also a truth to say most of those children, their parents were not hands-on. So these are children who have come from a driver, the gate man, the housemaid, some uncles, a few friends, being their own role models, who have also relied on drugs and alcohol in that point. So they come there, and that's what it is. In any group, there will always be the popular kids. The strong will always survive and pull through. But also, what is the easiest thing to bring out decadence, to push your inner desires to the fore? It's usually drugs and alcohol. So there will be rape.
Yeah.
There will be a lot of sexual decadence. There will be cultism. Because that's what this is. It's not called dope for fun. Dope means cold in some places. It means thick gravy sauce in Dutch. But etymology, like I've learned it, etymology of dope is thick. Thick meaning stupid or senseless. But these children are not looking at that. They're not thinking that there has to be some personal responsibility for that. It's like the Rotary test. Is it fair?
Is it?
Is it true? Does it benefit all that around? Does it benefit my country? It is simple. But we lost one special trait that I feel, starting from there, using that as a starting point, we can get back to the glory that covered us before as a community.
Okay, you know,
Nigerians.
It's interesting that we're looking at this, you know, this way.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, you know, some people will agree with you when you say dope means stupid, because you release a program, wow, that song is dope. Whether it's another thing, that's another conversation. But, you know, talking about parents putting children in boarding school, what age do you recommend that a child is old enough to go to a boarding school, a properly set up, properly supervised boarding school?
Do you think there's such a thing as a properly supervised boarding school?
Well,
can it be in existence? Is it
I
possible?
went to a boarding school, and I went at age 11. Here I am today.
At a different time.
At a different time. That's why I'm asking.
At a different time.
So
what I'm saying is that,
because my apologies, I also understand that there's a school in Ogun State.
Yeah.
That the parents have a fellowship of sorts, right? That supervises stuff themselves. The parents association or whatever they call them are kind of hands-on with the school management to ensure that proper infrastructure is put in place and all of that. It may not be perfect, but at least it is.
But that system will work. But today, one of the main problems we have is that there's no accountability on the part of parents like there used to be. They just want to dump it on you. Most of the time, I've seen a few schools, apart from my children's schools, and I've seen parents come to complain about their children to the school. And I smiled to myself that, oh, no, sir, no, ma'am. The school should be complaining to you about your child. Either the one that was in the boarding school or the one that is a day student, because it's your own fundamental job. So a case whereby the stakeholders like the school or like the parents come together to make sure that their hostel facilities are spot on, it's fine. There's CCTV, there is mentors within the school, they are checking on each other, they are putting the values through. It's the same values at home, in the religious institution, and in school, yes, in that kind of a system. But you look at these things, we are looking at the supply end, at the demand end of drugs, which is people want drugs, people are using drugs. What about the supply end? It's also economic for some. Oh, there is no man or so that came to sell to those students. Somebody sold to somebody, and one of the middlemen was just a student like that brought it to the rest of them. And that particular student, you might be surprised, might not be using it, just selling it as an economic means.
So
It's
but
a thing.
where's the balance? I know
Okay.
you said that there's a responsibility,
For
you know,
everybody.
from the home, but you know, the home sees to it that a child is taken care of economically, emotionally at time, emotionally, and all that and all that.
Yeah.
And then you know, we started off by saying that our previous conversation says that children spend like how many hours in school per day. When you have education as well, there's also a balance. You teach subjects, and then there's also a place where you teach morals as well
Values.
as part of education.
Yes.
So while there's a lot of burden on the family to ensure that they get their kids' heads screwed on right and so that they'll be better prepared for a world, there's also that burden on schools as well to ensure that these students graduated from our school. Their moral standards are good and high. We're proud to say these were my students.
Have been released into the world.
That have been released into the world. So where's that burden? Because the burden is where. How do we share the burden? Let me put it that way.
All right. I think we probably made an error. First of all, there is no right or wrong way to parenting.
Yeah.
It's different for everybody, and it's probably particular to the child. And in family systems engineering, we will tell you that what you need to do has to do with who you are doing it with. You have to look at that child and adapt basically to that child. But we seem to have made a mistake a few years ago. Now, we had our way of parenting. Then globalization and westernization came, and we went from the communal family system into the nuclear family system. Make no mistake about it, the nuclear family system is wonderful, but everything seems to have its upside and its downside. While it made families more stable, they could provide more for a limited number of children, what it did was that it removed support. If you take a whole broom, breaking that broom is difficult. You can't break a bunch of broom, but you can take a stick out of it and easily break it. The family became more and more nuclear with time.
Right. Are we also, changing, as parents, changing with the times? Because sometimes, out of the office, I hear people say that, hey, my son said this to me. They born me well when I was growing up to make this kind of statement and say to my father, my mother, that thing. Or you hear, in the US or Europe, you say African American parents, you dare, no. Because it's other than maybe the Caucasian parents, that you dare not say this in front of African American parents, which means that either Nigeria or UK, or once it's a black person, even if you're not a Nigerian, once maybe you're an American or you're a UK British citizen, and you're not of Nigerian born or African, but you're of African descent, there's a value on what you cannot say to your parents other than on the other end. So, but I think we're changing with the times. We're allowing a lot of things. So I don't know, where can we strike that balance to?
We have become hypocritical. We've continued to stand in front of everybody and say we are Africans, we have values, we do this, we do that, but it's been in speech alone. It hasn't been in deed. Your child has seen you lie on the phone so many times. Your child sees you drink. Your child sees you smoke. Your child sees you celebrate corruption on social media. Your child sees you do a myriad of things. Then you now come back to that child and preach or lecture that child. That child is going to do what you are doing, not what you are saying, because by going through that way or that process, you are confusing the child. That's what you're doing. Now, we used to support each other. If we were neighbors, for example, staying on the same street, you could go to work and your children would hang with mine or with me if I wasn't going to work that particular day. Or we saw them. There was once upon a time that I was coming back from school. I was at the gate of my house. So I took out my shirt and I'm relaxed. I'm about to go in. My principal passed at that same time. I knocked down in school for a whole week. For the first period, everybody saw me. I was a social prefect at the time. I knelt down. I was made an example for others not to go through that. And they made sure that they enforced those things that were taught. They weren't being wicked by telling me to kneel down in front of the principal's office for a week. But all they are saying is that we are expecting a lot from you. And that has to stay within you. We don't do that any longer.
Even if we even try today.
We wouldn't.
The so-so person's child?
Try and scold another person's child. Try it. They will slap you by the end of it. I've seen teachers slapped in school because their children were disciplined. I've seen it done. We lost that particular value. See, when two cultures meet, what they should do is examine each other. Look for solutions to each person's problems in the other one. It doesn't mean that you should do away with your own culture. We could take the best out of the Western culture and still instill our own culture. The all-for-one vibe we are looking for now, we should be each other's neighbors, we should care for ourselves. We lost it when we embraced the Western culture.
Let me ask you
together again.
A difficult question.
Yes, sir.
Serious. In Africa, we are big on discipline.
Yes.
Particularly for children, our children, because you want your children to be known as a disciplined child.
Yes.
And a good number of people complain today when they go to certain environments or circles and they see other people's children just running all over the place, almost like without any discipline. And there are those who are advocating what they call gentle parenting. No beating, no scolding. If a child is having a meltdown, you will melt down with the child, you sit down, and all those things. There are those who would point to you, dear family engineer, that family systems engineer. At this gentle parenting something.
It's not working.
Okay.
It's not working.
It's not working.
Yeah, but you know,
no. I'm finishing your sentence. I'm not making a statement.
Before you comment on that,
yes,
hey, look at me. My dad never beat us. Now, I lost my mom when I was 10. My dad never beat us.
Yes, please.
He didn't scold like, maybe once in a while. But the fear of him was like the fear of the Lord.
Okay.
Do you understand? He didn't beat, but you know that you do not dare. I don't know how he did it though.
So, yeah.
He was authoritative.
Yeah, he was.
Not authoritarian.
Okay.
It sounds alike, the word sounds alike, it's the same root.
Yeah.
But it's different. Have you ever wondered why your children respect your school, their teacher so much, but not you?
Too much. You say, I'll tell Miss Richard for you.
I wondered for so long. Then along the way, I became a family system engineer. And then I now explored it. And I saw it. It was very simple. The teacher was trained to be empathetic, to be compassionate, but to be structured and firm, which means that they were warm, they were kind, but they were professional as well. So the consequences were already spelled out for the students before the sins even happened.
Yeah.
You saw the list of what will happen to you if you did blah, 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 or a variant of blah. So you knew that when that happens, either in that corner, or right over there, or behind this beautiful screen, the consequences were going to be the same. You have a choice to make. I should go ahead or I shouldn't. But I come back from work today, and it was very tough. I got a query. My car was in an accident. Somebody insulted me. Somebody spat in my face. So when I was sitting down and trying to focus, and my son started shouting and jumping, then I looked at him with that stare that I will kill you if you don't take your time. To which the boy is like, there's something wrong. The shies away. Then tomorrow, the same thing kind of occurs. Then I go over there and berate him and shout at him. Then today at work, it was a good day.
Yeah.
I got a promotion, the query was removed, I got some extra, and I got a paid vacation for the family. When he was jumping and shouting, I jumped and shouted with him.
Okay.
So the boy is confused.
Well,
how do we do this?
This is part one of this particular subject matter.
Okay.
Because we are coming back to it.
Okay.
This whole gentle parenting thing, we need to discuss it so that people can understand what we're talking about. But thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for your time.
Mr. Deji Shomi is a certified family systems engineer and president network of family systems engineering professionals. We'll find out more about that some other time.
Some other time. Thank you so much.
Okay. So dear gentle parents also.
Gentle parenters.
Thank you so much for the privilege of being a part of your Saturday morning. I'm Ayo Makinde. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
I'm Joke Rogers. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
By the way, it's still World Cleanup Day today. So
go and clean your environment, everyone.